The night belongs to us. We will bathe in their blood and relish their screams.
Hi everybody, I'm Mark White. I'm the former project lead and managing director for Southampton Vampire by Night. In this video I'm going to be talking about social media, and to be 100% honest with you, this is the second time I've created this video. Social media is definitely a minefield and something that I definitely wasn't prepared for when starting the project. So the first video I made was kind of a little bit too much of a bitch fest, and there's no benefit from that. So I will touch on why that video was all me ranting. But before I do, it's probably best to discuss why social media is important for your project. And that's because basically you're going to come to a point where you want people to attend your game or buy your product or whatever it is that your project's about. There's going to come a point there where you're trying to market your brand, and when you do that, if you've built up, as I like to call it, 7 points of contact with your customers, then they're more likely to buy your product, sign up for your Larp, etc. And the way you do that is you give people 7 positive encounters with your brand. And by the 7th time that they have that positive feeling for your brand, the likelihood of them purchasing, signing up, whatever it is greatly increased. It's why, for example, when you see a backer kit or a Kickstarter, you may not automatically just go on there and pledge and buy it. What you normally do is, or what I find myself doing is, over a period of time, I'll keep on going back to it, because I see other advertisement, or some of my friends will be talking about it, or a stretch goal will be reached, or something like that, and eventually I'll go, do you know what, no, I thought about this, I'm definitely going to do this, and then I'll make a purchase. Now, so with that kind of mindset, we were like, right, well, there's not exactly a lot of social media for Vampire or Vampire Larp, and I'll get into that later in the video. But the idea being was that we wanted to have our brand be seen within the community, and we wanted to do things that were positive for the community, so that way our brand would have a positive kind of feeling about it. So that was the idea behind it, and it was an epic fail in that regard, because I spent way too much time on social media, because it was something that I was so uncomfortable with. I overanalyzed it continuously in regard to what I needed to do or what was going to get me the best promotion, and all kinds of stuff. And whenever you do searches for how to best social media / advertise your company, you're just bombarded with basically thrifty conny kind of websites, etc., that will take your money and then post it to a load of random people that have no interest in what you're doing, etc. So we were trying to avoid that, and at the same time trying to find information on what to do. So yeah, social media is a beast, and it's a beast because what you like or what you think is appropriate or something that you feel would definitely be really well received within the community probably isn't. And then when you look through and you try to find something that is trending well, or is something that the community is well received, it may not make sense to you of why. And so for me, there's a perfect example of when I look through the vampire community posts, There's one particular type or two particular type of posts that trend really well. One is, what vampire clan am I? And there's a picture of someone in some cosplay looking like a particular clan maybe. And the other one is, hey, check out my bookshelf. Now, both of these are a picture. And on the face value of it, for me looking, I'm thinking, well, not a lot of time went into that. As far as, how much effort was involved taking that picture, not a lot. But they're massively well received. They get loads of likes, loads of comments, etc., etc. They were trending, especially that "what clan am I" thing was trending at one point. And there was a lot of buzz around it. And I could never figure out why, because it's something that I don't really see the thing of. And it wasn't until I had a conversation with someone who did have a bookshelf full of books that they say to collect the vampire kind of rule books, especially the ones that date back towards the 90s and stuff, is quite difficult because it's a niche hobby, and it never really, although it did boom at one point, it has disappeared into the darkness now, literally. So getting hold of those older books, especially in good conditions and stuff like that, is harder and harder and harder to do. So someone who has a massive collection of these books, it's quite an impressive feat. So when they show these off, a lot of other collectors look at it, and they also look at it as a means for finding out what books are missing from their collection, etc. So that's why they get buzz. But I didn't realise that at the time. And the other thing is, with these "what clan am I" thing, it's just a way to stimulate conversation within the community in a kind of easier way. Because when they make the post, people know what clan they're going for, you know what I mean? It's interesting to see people's interpretation of it and why they've interpreted it that way, etc., etc., etc. So I get it. But at the time when I've just spent probably 8 hours, 10 hours producing a video showcasing what the Anarch movement is, with costume and script written and research into the history of it and all of that kind of stuff, and trying to make it so I'm not going into the real details of the kind of thing and just trying to give you a flavour and a sense, and I make that video and I post it out, and it gets like maybe 200 views, a few likes, a couple of comments. It's devastating. And that's where the other video I went off on a rant. But basically, it's one of those things where you have to be prepared with social media that you're going to make a post, you're going to put yourself out there for everybody to see, and nobody is going to comment, reply, like, anything. And you're going to feel horrendous for it. You're going to feel like you've done something completely wrong, and that what you're doing is the wrong thing to do, and nobody likes your project, or nobody's going to sign up to it, or you're wasting your time. That's the feelings you're going to get, especially when you kind of get ghosted by the community. Now, I want to take you right the way back to the start of the video when I turned around and talked about that Kickstarter and backer kit. And when I looked at those promotions for these backer kits and Kickstarters that I eventually paid for, I didn't comment. I didn't like their posts. I didn't do anything. I just watched, took some information, and went and talked to my friends about it. I didn't really interact with that company until I made my purchase. So with that mindset, now look at the post, now look at that video that I made about the Anarch movement. Yeah, maybe the 200 people at the time that did view it, maybe out of those 200, 100 of them liked it and thought, do you know what, this is cool. Maybe 50 of them thought, do you know what, I'm going to watch some of his other videos, or what he makes later on. I'm interested in this project. Maybe out of those 50, 25 of them then started to do some research into my company and looking through other things. And maybe out of those 25, 10 of them may have signed up for my game. Now, that's what I'm on about with those 7 points of contact. I believe that when you make your social media posts, don't invest yourself into them personally. Put them out there because you're wanting to put your brand into that media, into that social media. You know, you're trying to get yourself out there. Be positive, be helpful, and I believe that by doing so, you are getting those 7 points of contact within the community. So, yeah. Now, I did say that I went too far into social media and I wasted a lot of time, and there's something from that. Now, when I made the first video, once again, I went down this rabbit hole of, well, you know, it was a complete waste of time and all of this jazz. And when I think about it, it only came across as a complete waste of time because my project never actually went live. It may have been that all of the work that we put into that social media may have been a really big benefit. Maybe we had those 7 points of contact with multiple people that were really looking forward to the game to launch. So, but at the time, it felt like a complete waste. And the reason for that was that we spent hours and hours and hours writing scripts, coming up with video ideas, coming up with posts, engaging with certain members of the community, reaching out to companies and organizations, and lots and lots and lots of things that we were up to. And what became very apparent very quickly is a few things. Now, one of which I was definitely not prepared for. Now, so the first thing was that Vampire, especially Vampire Larp, isn't very well known on social media. There was nothing at the time. So I was one of the first, if not the first person, to dedicate a YouTube channel to Vampire Larp, discussing Vampire Larp, making videos that were trying to promote it, talking about the Mind's Eye Theatre rule set, making kind of in-character videos explaining roughly what the vibe and feel of the clans were, stuff like this. There was nothing at the time. So there was nothing for my videos to basically trend with. So what will happen is, when you're doing, I'm not going to go into the details of YouTube, that's not what this video is about, but the idea is that YouTube uses analytics in the way that it wants to try to promote your videos to an audience that is more likely to watch that particular content. And if there is no audience for your video to kind of be shown to, YouTube kind of has a brain fart and tries to show it to things that are roughly related to it. And so in the case of Vampire Larp, it will pick up on the word LARP, which is niche in itself, and will show it to that kind of community. And I'll get back to that on the second point. Now, as far as the Vampire Larp community was concerned, there wasn't a social media presence at the time. It started to kind of come about now, but if you think about the YouTube channels that are in some way related to Vampire, the majority of them are to do with the lore, not really the rules of the game or anything like that, but the lore behind World of Darkness. And there's quite a few channels dedicated to that lore. Outside of that, though, there's not a lot of content for it at the time. So yeah, it was making these videos meant that they wouldn't reach an audience on YouTube. So the only way we could get these videos seen and into the community and seen by the community was looking up Discords, Reddits, forums, etc., etc., Facebook and all of that jazz, and try to post these on there. Now, there are two main Facebook groups that you can join. I think one's called Vampire the Masquerade and one's called Vampire the Masquerade 5th edition, or V5. Those are two places that I use regularly to make my posts. The admins are really cool. As long as you keep to the guidelines, they're happy for you to make those posts, just not bombard it with posts. Now, the other thing was, and I think now when I'm making these posts, the admins recognise my name. At the start, it was a little bit harder, but now I think that, I don't know, hi admins, I think now that when I do make the post on there, that it's easier for it to go through the kind of checks and stuff. But anyway, so you've got those two. There are a couple of Reddit groups, but we're talking, so basically when I was making these posts, I wouldn't go on Reddit groups that had like 1,000 people or 500 people or something like that. I'll be looking at the ones that had at least 5,000 and above. Just the way it works when you post on those, how many of those people will actually see it, like it, whatever you want to call it. So on Reddit, there's not much for Vampire, and I don't see much traction when I make posts on that particular thing for Reddit. And then you've got certain Discord groups and stuff like that you can, with permission from the admins, make some posts on there. So at the time I was utilising By Night Studios. They had a Discord. I was posting on there, and eventually World of Darkness made a Discord and to help content creators and stuff. And I posted a couple of videos on that. But that's basically it for social media kind of places where you can hit large audiences of people that are interested in Vampire. So there's not a lot, and so it's a struggle when we were trying to get our brand name out there. It was a struggle to do so, and so be prepared for that. Do your research before you start your project and stuff like that. Doing some research on the audience that you're going to be marketing it towards is important, more important than you think, because the bigger that audience is, the more there is, or the more popular that kind of your project IP, the kind of the more popular that project, or the more popular what you're doing your project on is, I think that makes sense, the more likely there will be for large Reddit groups, large Facebook groups, Discord channels, Instagram trends, you name it. There'd be a massive amount of things that you can then post / share your advertisement, on. Otherwise, you have to make it all yourself, and that's why we started to do things like, we had our Facebook group and we had a Facebook page. Both work differently. If you're doing a project, you want both, because although I think Facebook's changed it now, but at the time, a Facebook group, everybody on that group was guaranteed to see your post, whilst on a Facebook page, it would appear on their feeds, maybe. So you would find that your audience on the group would be more interactive because they would see more of your posts. But I think they've changed it now. It's nowhere near as good as it was. Facebook as a whole is incredibly difficult to market on, because it's just flooded with advertisements and stuff now, and not a lot of people are using it like they used to. So anyway, that's a little rant about Facebook. But basically, at the time, Facebook was all right for advertisement, but now I wouldn't recommend. We were looking at different ways to kind of advertise ourselves within the community and get that feedback. And one of the things that we massively struggled with was the Vampire community as a whole. So the Vampire community is, in my opinion, and all of this going forwards, and this entire video, of course, is my opinion. And I'm not trying to go out there to offend people, and I'm definitely not trying to go out there to offend the Vampire community. So I'm saying that now before I go into this. But basically, to me, the Vampire community is fractured. So you basically have, as I call it, like the old guard and the new, and that's between the whole V20, V5. Now me, I sit in the middle, where I like aspects of V5 and I like aspects of V20. So for me, I don't mind too much, but there are definitely individuals out there that are sitting strongly in the V20, and there are people that will sit in the V5 camp. And because of that, that divide just between that makes, when you're putting a post out in that community, there are some people that will look at it and go, well, that's V5 content, I'm not even going to bother looking at that. Or if it's in any way opposed to their viewpoint of what the game should be, will automatically have a negative response towards you. So that's that kind of fracture within the community straight off the bat. Then you have the community is made up of people that liked werewolf or changeling or mage. There are people that are solely there for the lore. There are people there that just play the RPG. There are people there that just like the games and were basically brought in this because of the temptation of Bloodlines 2. There are people that do the LARP. There are people that do their own LARP and nothing to do with World of Darkness rules and stuff. They just use the IP as the kind of to build their rules. There are people that use Mind's Eye Theatre rules. There are people that use Nordic style. Basically, it's a community that is fractured across lots of different things within this IP, and it's a small community. It's not as big. Yeah, it's not big. And it's fractured. And in my opinion, Paradox hasn't helped the situation. And I don't mean this as a slight towards how their social media has been handled, but it's just they've basically focused down strongly, in my opinion, on V5. Because the same way is, and I understand why, because if you've brought out like D&D, for example, 3.5 to 4th edition to 5th edition, I think they're on 6th edition now, Wizard of the Coast aren't going to be advertising their old books because it dilutes the message that they're trying to promote now, which is the new thing. So I get why Paradox wouldn't want to promote in any way V20 because it contradicts with V5, and especially where they've changed a lot of the lore to try and make it simplified for people, new people coming into the game to understand. It means that if people start talking about, for example, ShrekNet and going into details about ShrekNet, it massively confuses newer players to the game because ShrekNet no longer exists. They got rid of it. So I get why they would only be promoting V5. The problem comes though is that I cannot see why with that promotion they still can't do a form of promotion for people that are doing stuff within their IP for, let's say, things that aren't relevant, but just market it as this isn't V5, this is this, because the problem is where the community is so small and you've got that divide and all those fractures, if they only advertise and are only working on promoting this one part, V5, it ostracises and isolates and causes the rest of the community to go into these little spheres that aren't interested in what anybody else is doing. And so because of that, the communities just don't grow. V5 will start to grow, but the rest of it will just, and that's why it's fucking hard when you're trying to promote stuff, because you're met with that. Altstar started to do like a series, and still does a series of what's going on within the vampire community this month, what are we working on, etc. And they had these videos that came out regularly that would then promote things that were happening. It could be somebody was working on some badges, or there could be a TikTok LARP, or it could be, hey look guys, we've got some updates for Bloodlines 2, or there's a new book coming out, or whatever it was. But basically, unless this is in any way, if it's not related to V5, that you would have no promotion upon that. And that was a hard pill to kind of take, because when we started Savannah to Vampire by Night, we wanted to be relevant. So at the time, there was only the most relevant material was Mind's Eye Theatre. Now, Mind's Eye Theatre is like a hybrid between V20 and V5, because it changed some of the stuff from V20. So it's, in theory, it was its own kind of lore at the time when it was released. And then when V5 came out, it kind of sat in the middle of that. Now, we were basing our game all about Mind's Eye Theatre and that rule set, without knowing that that would mean that basically no matter what we were doing, Paradox, stroke Altstar and the social media stuff would have no interest in what we were doing. Didn't know that. That sucked. Because when you're in such a small community, a boost like that would make a huge difference in viewership, growth, people that are reaching out to help your project, funding opportunities, that kind of stuff. So, yeah. But then, during this process, we then cottoned on that V5 Larp was on the books, that it was going to happen. So then we went, fuck, okay, well, we need to change over to V5 now. We need to change the rules and everything to V5, which meant we redid all of our laws and everything to marry up so we would get that kind of promotion and sit in the right camp, if you see what I mean, for promotion from World of Darkness Paradox. And problem with that was that we were making those changes, but there was no rules. The rules now are only just coming out. I mean, we're talking 3 years after the scheduled launch of the game. By Night Studios are only just launched a backer kit, which was successful. So we're expecting end of this year, maybe next year before the rules come out. We would have been buggered if that was the case. So yeah, it was annoying because no matter what you did as a LARP, you couldn't keep there was no way to keep relevant with Paradox stroke their social media, if you see what I mean, because there was no LARP rules for V5, and there was then no way of getting promotion for any form of LARP under V5. I could never understand why, and now looking back I know why. There was never any promotion at all for LARP, and I get why that was, because there was no V5 LARP at all. So yeah, it just sucked. It was hard. And so that, God, I've gone down the rabbit hole, and I apologise for that. But basically, that's why you need to do your market research. That's why you need to look in before you start doing social media, before you're planning your project and all the rest of it. Think about your audience. Think about what kind of opportunities there may be for you to get promoted in some way. Because at the end of the day, trying to get... The difference is, if you make a post and you show it to 500 people, and then you make a post and it gets seen by 5,000 people, there will be a massive difference in the post uptake. How many people are genuinely going to read it, watch it, look at it, and then you get what I mean. So when you have these platforms like that are able to advertise you or get your branding out, that have 29,000 subscribers, it makes a huge difference from me having 300 and somebody else having 29. 300 subscribers will see my content, or 29,000 people will see my content. That's the difference. And so that's why doing your research and knowing where those platforms are that you may be able to get yourself seen on makes a huge difference. Because that's what it's all about. Social media is all about getting your branding out there in a positive way. And that's all you've got to remember. And then I did say that there was two things that I was surprised, and one I was massively surprised about. And that one is, so we found out very quickly that we were absolutely buggered with social media, because our social media solely had to be on these vampire communities. Because when we started to look at doing LARP as a whole, and you would come across like we were looking at D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, and all of this kind of stuff, because there were role players in there that may have been interested, and some of these other LARP groups and stuff we thought may have been interested, because what we were talking about was a LARP. I found out very quickly that there was definitely something iffy with the reactions I was getting. And I did some digging, and lucky enough, there was a few individuals that admins of these groups that all said the same thing, which made me then 100% believe that this was the case. And that is, if any of you have had the opportunity, World of Darkness made a documentary about how their company started, etc. And you can find it on Amazon or Amazon Prime. That's where I watched it anyway. It was still on there, and I think it was free to watch. Now, they did this documentary, and they talk about, all the bits and stages, how it came about, who did the art, and all of this. And there's this key moment in that video where they talk about how all of a sudden they had this huge influx at Gen Con, where you had loads of goths and bikers and rockers and this crowd that had never been to Gen Con before, all swarmed there because of World of Darkness, because they love the vampire stuff, and at that time the LARP for it was booming. Now, Gen Con, for a lot of people at the time, was kind of like their nirvana. It was a safe place where loads of like-minded individuals could get together, be themselves, and enjoy that community. It was a great place to go if you were into your role play, your LARP, all of that kind of stuff. You go to Gen Con, you could be yourself. Now, if you could imagine, you go to this place where you feel, I'm not going to say safe, but you feel comfortable, and all of a sudden it's filled with groups of individuals that make you feel uncomfortable and are taking a piss out of you, and it ruins the thing that you enjoyed. And basically, a lot of the admins and a lot of the people that now run these communities remember that. And Vampire has a shoddy reputation because of it. And I don't think that World of Darkness realised I wouldn't go as far as animosity, but just fuck you guys that is there within those communities because of that, what happened around that time. And also how over the years the kind of things that have happened within the World of Darkness kind of community have come to light, and there's been a lot of negativity that have happened with it. I'm not going to go into it, but there's been some stuff that has been, whenever it does come into that kind of the limelight, it's normally in a negative way. So anyway, I wasn't expecting that, because we were hoping, the idea was that we were going to try to utilise these other groups to try and entice people into Vampire LARP. And what we were met with was basically stone walls saying, no, it's not relevant to this group, don't post it here, we're not interested, etc. And also, another thing is to remember that Vampire is very adult, and a lot of these places are family orientated. D&D is definitely something that is very family, because you can customize your games to make it as as child friendly as you want, whilst with Vampire it's very difficult to make sucking the blood off of another person family friendly. You're playing a monster, it's difficult to make that great for your 6-year-old. So there was another reason why we had some stone walls, was because of that. But yeah, in general, it was just a minefield. That one of the toughest parts of the project was the social media, understanding it, getting it, what trending, how you make posts, why you make posts in a certain way, what time of the day you make your post, what's trending, what isn't, why are my posts not being well received. It's just you just keep on going round and round and round. And in my case, I spent so much time on that I should have dedicated to as I think I've said in the people video, or people management, I should have dedicated to my team. You know, I think in hindsight, as a do-over, I wouldn't have publicised this game until about a year before we knew it was definitely launching. And then I'd have started to advertise, and I'd have had a backlog of videos made up, and I'd have had a backlog of posts and all kinds of stuff, and we would have got somebody dedicated to the social media and then just done it like that. By starting it at the beginning and running it through, trying to do a documentary about how this was made. I always wanted to do a documentary on this, how to make a LARP, and we started it, and there was a lot of work that went into it, and then of course everything was starting to go wrong. We were just like, oh shit, okay, maybe let's not make these videos as, you know, as they were. So yeah, it was difficult, definitely. And yeah, so starting it later would have been the way forwards, doing a bit more research onto what was usable, and like when I said about the previous video for this was was really negative, is because I went into the details of how many hours was spent doing the things that I did and the reasons behind them, and having no engagement from the community was really, really hard. Really hard. Because if you think about it, when you're scrolling down through through your, let's say, Facebook feed, and be honest with yourself, how often do you stop, read something that you've enjoyed, and make a comment praising the individual for what they've said? You know, how many times do you see something you've enjoyed or like and just put a like by it? Okay, and then now think, when you're scrolling through and you see something that upsets you, that aggravates you, how often have you stopped to express your opinion? And then how often have you stopped to put a little angry face or whatever on it? Okay. Now, I can't speak for everybody here, but from my point of view, I have, after being honest with myself, I have commented more times to posts that I felt were negative, to express my opinion, than I have to comment and say positive things about something. And on the flip, I've been more likely to just hit a like by something that's had a positive impact on me than I am to put a frowny face thingy next to something that's had a negative effect. So what normally happens is that you'll find that people will more often respond to your posts negatively than they will positively with comments. And you'll find that your posts will get more likes and hearts and whatever than they will frowny faces. So, yeah. And so because of that, you will see, as someone who is putting something out there on social media, that you are more likely to attract negativity than you are positivity onto your post. Yeah. So that was a hard thing to understand. And also, it only takes one. So basically, if one person makes a negative comment, it then opens the floodgates for everybody else to make negative comments, because they feel like they have somebody akin to basically bounce between that agree and their negativity. Whilst in the same value, if somebody makes a positive comment, what normally happens is that people just put a like symbol next to it, in like agreement. So what you'll find is that you'll have like this one positive comment with a load of likes on it, and then a few negative comments that are just talking with each other about this negative view they have, and that makes your overall post look like it's a negative thing, because you then forget about all of the likes that have been on the initial post, all of the hearts and loves. You just focus down on these two individuals that have commented negatively, and you believe that what you've done is a negative thing, and it's not. It's just the way it works. So yeah, that was hard to understand at first. Yeah. So I think this video is definitely better than the last one I made. So hopefully you've all enjoyed this and you've got some learnings from it. If anything, just remember 7 points of contact. You just want to positively impact somebody's life with your brand 7 times, and they are much, much, much more likely to make that purchase. So do not expect everybody after one post to come running over and signing up or handing you money. It takes time. It takes, it's constant reminding people that you are a safe, decent, enjoyable, brand. That's what it's all about. So just remember that. Also, another key point is don't get hung up on the negativity, these negative comments and all the rest of it. I guarantee you that all of those people that hit the like button on your posts, they're all got amazing things to say about you. They just don't. But the negative people will always more likely make those comments. So just remember that. You know what I mean? And then the last thing is, do your research on your communities. Whatever your project is based around, do your market research. What social media is already there? How is it engaging with the audience? How is the audience receiving it? And then just do what they're doing. Don't try and reinvent the wheel. Take what they're doing and make it slightly better. Put your own twist on it. Whatever. Just do that. And you will see much better results than you coming in with what you perceive to be the best thing for that social media. Trust me on this. If I'd have just done a series of pictures of me going, what clan am I would have had way more engagement than the hours and hours and hours and hours and hours that I spent making full costume, elaborate lore, videos. I should have just done what everybody else was doing at the time, and that would have been far better received. I should have taken pictures of my collection of books and got members of the team to take pictures of theirs, because I know that there was 2 members of our team towards the end that had huge collections. That in itself would have been a great post. Yeah. So there you go. Hopefully, like I say, you guys have learned something from this and it's going to help your projects going forwards. If you really want to help me, then Signal Boost. When you do your project, you're going to be thinking about this. How do I get a signal boost? How do I get my audience to basically share this with their communities? Well, you do it like this. You ask, and you're either going to do it or you're not. And if you're still here at this point in the video, then I believe you probably are more likely to do it, because not many people stay to the end. So yeah, please signal boost. Please talk about these videos with your community. Please share them. If you've got any social media people that are running projects, or have their own communities, ask them, can I please publicize this in those? Because all of this makes a huge difference to the growth and how I feel about these videos. I've said it in the previous ones about I'll do this as long as it's fun, but it is, trust me, it's really fun when I look at my videos analytics and I can go, wow, that video's doing really well. It makes me feel good. So if you want to make me feel good, please share it. Cool. So hopefully, like I say, you've enjoyed. And I love you all, and I'll see you all again soon. Okay, bye.